Hi everyone, welcome to Diet and Exercise for MS. What is hype? What is right? What you need to know. Hi, my name is Mandy Rohrig and I am a physical therapist and senior programs consultant with Can Do Multiple Sclerosis. Welcome. And I'm joined today with my colleague and friend, Mona Bostick. Mona, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. As you said, my name is Mona Bostick. I'm a registered dietitian. I have a private practice in Greensboro, North Carolina. The learning objectives of today's program, the participants and support partners will strengthen abilities to distinguish between what's hype, what's known, and related to diet, exercise, and multiple sclerosis. They will also lay groundwork to understand how diet and exercise may influence symptoms, MS symptoms, and overall health, and consider current evidence, recommendations, and developing questions to ask your team.
So, it's not uncommon when someone receives a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis or any unfamiliar diagnosis for that reason. It's tempting to jump online and refer to Dr. Google. But as you all, if you have done this, myself included, we realize that Dr. Google can be really, really confusing. There's a lot of information out there, and a lot of it can be really unclear and inaccurate. So when you are Googling or investigating information online, it's important to think about what is science, what is real science. So seek out those .gov websites or those .org websites. Those could be government websites and patient advocacy, nonprofit websites that can provide really good, accurate information. Similarly, you can explore those peer-reviewed journals and those peer-reviewed research articles. They have undergone extensive critique and evaluation by experts in the field, and they do provide excellent information. And then certainly use your healthcare team. If there's some confusion or question, reach out to those folks and they can guide you as well. Conversely, pseudoscience, it's important to be aware of those types of cures. If you read about something that says it can cure headaches and it can cure numbness and tingling and it can cure spasticity and it can cure weakness and it can cure lots of things, there's a strong possibility that it doesn't do any of that. Similarly, I think it's also important to be aware of the cure word in general. If there were a cure for multiple sclerosis, I can assure you, and I'm sure Mona would say the same, we can assure you that we would all know about that. And then lastly, be cautious of testimonials. While it is really comforting to hear the stories and experiences and successes of other folks living with multiple sclerosis, it's just important to remember that that is their own individual experience and that is their own individual health situation. And what works for them may not necessarily work for you. So maybe use those testimonials as a way to start a conversation with your healthcare team of what might be helpful for you in your situation. But Mona, let's start into some of the hypes that are existing in the diet and exercise world of MS.
Well, if you have multiple sclerosis, it's no doubt you've heard of one or a number of ideal diets for MS. And that's one of the things that I get asked most often is, what is the best diet? And I'm doing the air quotes now. What is the best diet to follow if you're living with multiple sclerosis? The hype is that there is an MS diet, but actually it's unfortunate, but although the many diets that are promoted to benefit people with MS, none of them have been supported by science or evidence to alter the course of the MS disease process. So rather than asking how you should eat because you have multiple sclerosis, the better question might be to eat for overall health. Another question you might want to ask yourself, and as well as have a conversation with your healthcare team, is regarding comorbid health conditions. So if you have, for example, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, dyslipidemia, or elevated blood fats, there are a number of evidence-backed dietitian supported nutrition interventions that are proven to result in improved health outcomes with these comorbid health conditions. And in people with MS, having one of these conditions that's not well controlled has been associated with an increase of disability and a decreased quality of life. So that is something to consider for sure. But it's important that you, before you begin any nutrition intervention, speak to your healthcare team. You want to talk about what are your expectations. Are you hoping for one of those heal, beat, reverse, or cure situations that Dr. Google may have told you about? What are the changes you're making and why? And whatever changes you're considering making, can this become your forever diet? And the reason I say that is because short-term changes do not provide any lasting benefits. It's really important to remember that your whole body needs to be taken care of, not just multiple sclerosis. So eat for health, not necessarily MS.
So what's some hype in the MS exercise world? Well, some people say if I exercise right, I can stop my MS. Well, unfortunately, there is no right or wrong way to exercise when you're living with multiple sclerosis. But what we do know, as you can see by this slide, exercise and physical activity has a tremendous impact and a tremendous role in the overall health and wellness of someone living with MS. There are three primary buckets of roles and benefits. The first one are those functional benefits. So this is being able to walk better or carry your groceries up and down those stairs more easily, or having the endurance to work an entire day and then still participate in some type of leisure or recreation activity after work. Those functional benefits that exercise and physical activity can give you. The second one are those brain health benefits. And when we talk about brain health benefits, there's research to suggest that exercise and physical activity can encourage neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is that ability of the central nervous system to change, the ability of it to change in a positive way in response to exercise and physical activity. The evidence suggests that exercise can help to encourage optimizing of those neural connections, changes, rerouting of those neural connections. So lots of positive changes can happen as a result of exercise. Functional benefits, brain health benefits, and also immune health benefits. And that can involve the fact that exercise can help contribute to potentially a more anti-inflammatory environment. But what's most important is the overall impact that it has on quality of life and the ability to lessen disability. So while there is no right way to exercise, we know that exercise does have a lot of powerful benefits, and we could start to wonder slightly, and researchers have and coined this term, are exercise and physical activity disease-modifying treatments? Research has suggested that exercise and physical activity have been linked to reduced relapse frequency, so less common, less frequent relapses, has affected and impacted mobility disability as well as the progression of mobility challenges with respect to walking and ability to transfer and do dynamic gait and balance activities. It has also impacted the lesion volume or the size of those MS lesions. So some pretty big hitters that the exercise and physical activity can impact. But as Mona alluded to, the other thing that exercise can do is help to influence those comorbid health conditions, those conditions, specifically those vascular health conditions that have been shown to worsen symptoms, but also disease progression. Now, while that's really unfortunate to hear, the good thing and the thing that we need to focus on are those comorbid health conditions can be controlled and regulated and hopefully improved by, you guessed it, diet and exercise.
So back to the hype. If you have multiple sclerosis, you may be wondering, how do you fix your leaky gut? There's a lot of information online about Dr. Google suggesting that having multiple sclerosis means you have a leaky gut. And if you have a leaky gut, then you really have to address it, right? Something important to consider though, leaky gut is not a clinically recognized diagnosis. So while the gut microbiome is an exciting area of research, especially with multiple sclerosis, it's in the very early days. Research is underway, but it's not yet conclusive. What we know is that research suggests that the microbial contents of the gut, otherwise known as the microbiome, can be altered by the diet. It may affect the immune system, and that people with multiple sclerosis may be different than the non-MS population. There may be something unique about our gut because we have multiple sclerosis. However, what we don't know yet is what makes a favorable and an unfavorable microbiome. How do you know when it's good or bad? And then once we are able to determine what's good or bad, how do we know how to alter it? We don't yet know what the best way to go from one to the other. And what that means is that many of the supplements, protocols, and other things that Dr. Google is wanting to sell you to fix that leaky gut, it's not based on any actual science. So in other words, the news is exciting about the research, and it's very promising, but there's still a lot more to learn. And before you spend a lot of money on anything to fix your leaky gut, I would encourage you to just eat a well-balanced diet and save your money for those supplements.
So what's the hype? I have to do the same exercise so I don't lose progress. I hear this often in physical therapy. What do we know though? We know that all movement counts. We've been kind of dropping the terms physical activity and exercise a little bit already in this presentation, but I think it is important to recognize that physical activity is all of the movement that you do throughout the day. It could be doing cooking, cleaning, dressing, bathing, chasing after your children. Anything and all movement that you do counts, and that is physical activity. Exercise, however, is the more specific types of movements that we do. They're generally very structured, strategic, prescribed by an exercise specialist or a physical therapist, and contains these four categories of exercises: flexibility, resistance training, balance training, and aerobic exercise. But I think what's important to think about are these other bullets, are these other points that exercise performance can and honestly will fluctuate. It's important to have a variety of exercise options, have a menu of choices for those days when fatigue is really overwhelming and you just aren't able to do as much as you wish. And those days when you're feeling pretty good and you really want to try to push the envelope a little bit. Maybe on those fatigue days, you do some simple stretches and deep breathing, whereas those other days you can hop on your bike and ride for miles. But be kind and prepare and anticipate for those fluctuations. Sometimes it's easier to tackle and manage an exercise program when it's scheduled intermittently throughout the day versus one single time block. So think about that. Maybe while you're folding laundry, you decide to put some arm weights on your wrists, and you can get a little bit of resistance training while you're at the same time doing an activity. Prioritize exercise. Unfortunately, none of us are going to get any more than 24 hours in a day. And because of that, if we want to do it and it's important to our health and to our MS, then we have to make it a priority. And if you need help figuring out a way to make it a priority, talk with your healthcare team. And again, have options, consider adaptations. And adaptations, remember, can be mobility aids. It can be adaptive equipment. I'll briefly share a story. I'm reminded of a patient who was able to ambulate on a day-to-day basis without a mobility aid. When he tried to exercise without using a mobility aid, he would go for long walks and he would only be able to go a quarter of a mile to a half a mile, which is great. That was great. However, when we incorporated some walking sticks or trekking poles, hiking poles, whatever you wish to call them, he went from going a quarter of a mile or a half a mile to upwards of a mile or more without the repercussions of that terrible fatigue. So not only was he getting more exercise by using this mobility aid, but he was also getting the benefits to his overall health. So the movement prescription that is currently recommended in the research is 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise and or physical activity per week. So you want to strive for that 150 cumulative minutes. If you can do both exercise 150 minutes and physical activity 150 minutes, that's fabulous. But the goal is one or the other. So here are some evidence-based exercise ideas based on those 4 buckets of exercise we briefly touched on. Flexibility, and again, these are general recommendations. Flexibility exercises can be completed daily, holding each stretch 2 to 3 times for about 30 to 60 seconds each. You can use a very targeted stretching routine that could be prescribed by a physical therapist to address those muscles that need the most attention, or you could participate in a more free-form yoga. Resistance training, also 2 to 3 times, but rather 2 to 3 times per week, 1 to 3 sets, 8 to 15 repetitions. And you want to try to do about 5 to 10 exercises. You can use lots of different modes for resistance training, including weight machines, free weights, resistance bands, and even your own body weight. Balance and coordination exercises. There's considerable amount of variability in the evidence in the research right now about how much, and basically the reason why for that is it's very individualized. So if you're someone who doesn't have a balance challenge or isn't challenged by your balance, then this may be something you just do on a less frequent basis, more as a check-in to make sure you're sustaining your abilities. Whereas other folks who are more at risk for falls, they may really have to focus on this as a key part of their overall exercise program. But some ways you can go about that would be Pilates or a lot of core strengthening, because core strengthening exercises have been associated with improved balance. Hand walking. Dancing can be another option. Tai Chi, specific postural stability exercises, and even vestibular exercises, which are specific exercises to strengthen the organ in our inner ear that helps with rotational movements. And the last area of exercise is aerobic exercise. And as you can see, there are many options that you can do. At a minimum, we want aerobic exercise accomplished 2 to 3 times per week for anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. And again, this can be broken up. We want you to do it at that moderate intensity, and you can calculate that moderate intensity with the help of your physical therapist or exercise specialist by finding your maximum heart rate, which is 220 minus your age, and multiplying that by 40% to 60%. That's approximately what your heart rate is. Or you can use a scale that's 6 to 20 and try to correspond your effort to that scale, 6 being no effort, 20 being a lot of effort. In addition to regular aerobic exercise, you can do advanced aerobic exercise, which is a little bit higher intensity. Or you can do something called high intensity interval training, which is kind of there's some emerging evidence supporting how this could be really helpful and beneficial for people living with MS. However, the only challenge that may exist is the fact that it's hard to sustain, it's hard to maintain, which is why the guidelines right now currently suggest 1 time per week. So lots of ideas, lots of ideas.
So what's the hype? Food is medicine. You've no doubt heard this quote from Hippocrates: let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. Dr. Google uses this quote often as if to suggest that food is actually medicine and can heal, beat, reverse, or even cure a variety of illnesses. MS and cancer are among them. That's ones that I've specifically read. Hippocrates, for sure, is to be credited for separating the discipline of medicine from religion, believing and arguing that disease was not a punishment inflicted by the gods, but rather the product of environmental factors, diet, and living habits. So he was the first one to bring that idea or concept to the conversation. But something else to know, medicine at the time of Hippocrates, which was more than 2,000 years ago, by the way, knew almost nothing of human anatomy or physiology. And that's because at that time there was a taboo forbidding the dissection of humans. So medicine has advanced since the day of Hippocrates, while environmental factors like diet and living habits all are important contributors to our overall health. They do not take the place of medicine and will not cure cancer and will not cure multiple sclerosis. So let's take a look at the food as medicine idea as it has adapted throughout the ages. 2020 BC, the idea was to here, eat this root. And then AD 1000, that root is heathen, here, say this prayer. AD 1850, that prayer is superstition, here, drink this potion. AD 1940, that potion is snake oil, here, swallow this pill. AD 1985, that pill is ineffective, here, take this antibiotic. And then we kind of come full circle again in around the year 2000, that antibiotic doesn't work, here, eat this root. It's kind of a cyclical thing, and it is a humorous look. Obviously, it's a tongue-in-cheek look. And this image, I found this image, I've adapted it from a book I read, the Nutrition for Dummies by Carol Ann Rinsler. It's a really good book, but that's where I found that. Anyway, this is obviously a tongue-in-cheek, humorous look at the cyclical nature of these kind of things. There are many alternative practitioners who continue to practice and promote these principles, even though Hippocrates has made a lot of important contributions to medicine, but a lot has been learned since his time. In fact, these days, it's tough to sort out who's who and make sense of what's being promoted. Medicine has advanced since Hippocrates, thank goodness. And while environmental factors, diet and living habits are all important contributors to our overall health, they do not take the place of medicine and will not cure cancer or multiple sclerosis. All natural supplements and herbal remedies are treated by like medicine by our bodies. And what do I mean by that? The liver processes every over-the-counter medication, prescription medication, vitamin, mineral, herbal remedy, just exactly the same. So it is possible to get toxicity in our system. It's possible to stress our liver. Even though you've maybe wanted to avoid prescription medicines, these all-natural alternatives are treated the same way by our livers. And there are also, it is possible with herbal supplements and remedies and vitamins and minerals to have interactions with medications. And these all-natural supplements are also able to cause symptoms and side effects. And finally, they are not regulated. So you really never know what you're going to get. You don't know if the ingredient you were hoping to get is actually included in the amount specified on the label. And you don't know that there's not other ingredients in there, like maybe gluten or some other medications have actually been found in supplements. So it's important to, whenever possible, get your nutrients from food. That's the way your body prefers to get these nutrients, and do it in the care of your physician. If you're correcting a deficiency, that's an important thing to do, but it's also important to know that more is not better.
So we hope that the time you've spent with Mona and I has been able to get you thinking a little bit. But we hope that now we haven't given you the message that just because you're avoiding hype doesn't mean you're avoiding hope. We understand and respect that living with a chronic condition is challenging, and we do encourage you to continue to have hope, to continue to be curious, to continue to seek out the most accurate and up-to-date information and resources that will help you live your best, most healthy life. And we also want you to hopefully find those healthcare providers and people that will support you. We hope Can Do MS is one of those organizations that will help lead you on that healthy path. And lastly, but certainly not least, diet and exercise strategies, as you can tell, are unique to each person, just like your MS is. I do find probably one of my favorite things about working with people who have MS is their ongoing hope, their curiosity, their willingness to problem solve, and this ongoing resilience. So please continue to have that hope and continue to be curious. And Mona will leave us with one other closing thought.
Find a place for the illness, but keep the illness in its place. That's a really important words to live by. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.